Hey Georgia, let's take a look at your week 6 final project here. So one thing that's surprising to me and kind of I guess just clicked for me right now is that this is the final um, rather than this being the final. All of the elements kind of making up a kind of almost like a catalog page where we're seeing different kind of products being sold and then coming together in one scene. I guess I wasn't putting that together in my head when I saw it the last time we saw it. I think I was just thinking of these as studies that were made to supplement how this was being built, but wasn't necessarily part of the final product. So this is very much a different kind of animal because of that, and I think it ends up being more of a positive, at least for me, because I see it as a whole rather than kind of all these separate parts that I shouldn't really be seeing in the end. And it clarifies things for sure, and I think that like being able to see each of the distinct elements like the chairs separate from the scene make it easier to understand how these actually work in three-dimensional space. Because I think the one thing that is starting to really I think hold some of the elements in the scene back is that there's a lot of texture going on here, and it's all crammed into a very small area. You have stone, you have a different stone, you have wood, you have stripes, you have wicker, you have a different pattern, and then you have kind of a texture for the thing that's behind here, as well as value, shading, and shadows. So there's a lot of stuff going on in place, and I think that there are, for me, questions of structure and how things are working and clarity, but they, for the most part, get answered here, which is kind of nice. And a lot of people maybe don't have that option because they don't set their final up this way, but it is a nice supplement. It's like Cliff Notes in a way, which is kind of cool. You have made changes obviously from the last time we saw this. Value is being implemented, I think, much more in depth than it was before, and it does break up this excuse me, this space better. This space doesn't feel as flat. It has a lot more depth to it. I think the scan is also much better. It tends to show off the colors a little bit more. I think, though, with the added cast shadows and the added value changes, and then, like I said, just the high density of textures, things are starting to get very unclear, although in a very different way than what we were seeing before, where textures were running into each other. I think it ends up just being kind of a sheer overload of information that's making it very difficult. So there are areas like kind of what's going on in the back here that break down for me, even though I still can see them in their separate instances. It still feels very kind of difficult to understand. And then there's just kind of the sheer amount of kind of textures where one just comes right after the other and it kind of ends up being a little bit of an overload. And I almost think I might have mentioned this before in the last crit that this would not be that bad of an idea if it were implemented in here. The lighter value of the cushions versus the darker value of the wicker, and you get a better idea, I think, of the structure. But it is a choice you've made, and I think that like the chair ends up working out really nicely with the texture, the pattern. But I think in other areas it's not quite as crystal clear. I still think it came together nicely in the scene, though. The background color of the blue and the greens contrasting really nicely with the mostly oranges and yellows. I would say the overall kind of scene is much, much clearer than I think I could have imagined it to be, with the lattice work on the top and the fountain in the back and all the furniture and the cobblestone. So it is, I think, a testament to your craftsmanship and your work that you made such a complex situation so clear